Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing great out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day, a great ending to your week, a beginning to your weekend out there. Here to bring you the latest information that we have on what's going to happen weather-wise across the entire lower 48 for your Friday. We'll speak on a risk of strong to severe storms across the high plains and areas of the Rockies. A lot of rain that could fall between now and really the first half of the weekend, maybe most of the weekend across the Pacific Northwest. We'll talk about a little bit of moisture. Really more so just off the coastline of the southeast and the Gulf Coast. You know, some of this energy in the northern Gulf of Mexico could get going, and we will speak on that on the update on the tropics that we also have in this video. But we'll speak on that, and we'll just get everybody covered in this video, even for the areas that are not really expecting anything today. And like I mentioned, not very active weather ongoing across the lower 48 right now. Nothing too crazy at all. Nothing significant. And yeah, just not a whole lot going on. You know, I do think as we get into the later portion of this weekend, Sunday into Monday, there is going to be a higher risk of strong to severe storms, a higher severe weather risk across like the north central U.S., maybe the upper Midwest, the Dakotas, etc. So we will speak on that. We'll have a timestamp up for that portion of the video. And then, of course, we're going to give you all the latest information that we have on the tropics. We're going to do that every single video while we're in hurricane season, especially now that we've entered kind of the beginning days, the beginning weeks of peak hurricane season. So regardless if there's anything going on out there or not, we're going to continue to pump the latest model guidance that we have, the latest information on what's going on out there in the Atlantic Basin. So stay tuned for that if you're interested. But yeah, with all that being said, if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put those in the comments below, folks. I mean, it's kind of slow right now. So like I've mentioned a couple times this week, if you want to reach out to me, if you got anything specific you want to ask for me to pray for, or if it's just unspoken, folks, please put it in the comments below. It's a very important portion of this video. I would say it's the number one most important thing with this video is glorifying God. And I'm blessed enough to, you know, be able to have this platform to talk about the weather, but it's also a way for me to glorify God. And I feel like we should all use our talents, our gifts, to glorify Him. I feel like that's a priority in life as a follower of Christ. So that's me doing my part. So please put those prayer requests in the comments below. That's very important to me. If it's anything, if it's unspoken, put it there. So with all that being said, let's get rocking and rolling. So this is what's going on across the entire lower 48. You know, we got, once again, this blob of rain across the middle of the country. Seems like we've dealt with this over the last 7 days or so. Sometimes it's in Oklahoma, sometimes it's in Kansas, Nebraska. This morning, it is in Kansas. So we're waking up to some rain, some storms, nothing severe as of right now. We do have some scattered rains and some downpours across areas of the UP of Michigan, northern Wisconsin, and even starting to ooze into lower Michigan. We continue to get this spin up here in New Brunswick, areas of Quebec, but this is really racing off now to the east. Not going to bring a whole lot of weather today across New England like it has over the last couple days. So all in all, nothing really expected with that, but we are going to run a pretty large risk of severe weather. Large is as in not a high risk, but a large area is going to run a risk of strong and severe storms across this section of the country today, and we will speak on that. And then we got a lot of rain surging into the Pacific Northwest, more so the western sections of Oregon, and really more so Washington as of this morning. But there's that moisture kind of hanging out off the coast of the southeast and kind of the northeast Gulf of Mexico, and this is because there is a stalled out frontal boundary sagging down here, and sometimes some of this moisture can get going in the very warm bodies of water of the Gulf of Mexico and off the coast of the southeast. So we need to watch this moisture right in here, but this is what's going on right now. Of course, the eastern U.S. continues to be dominated by a very refreshing and nice and comfortable air mass. I mean, it's in the upper 60s at my house this morning. That's pretty uncommon for late August. Pretty wild stuff down here in my neck of the woods in central South Carolina. But watches, warnings, and advisories. Heat advisories are in the orange. Once again, excessive heat warnings in the purple in areas of southern Oklahoma and northern Texas. Temperatures in this area could get well over 110 degrees air temperature today. And we will actually show you a graphic on what the National Weather Service is predicting as far as high temperatures in this area. Got some fog up here in the Dakotas and areas of Minnesota. Red flag warnings up for Nevada and areas of Utah and a couple counties up in Idaho. We need some rain in this area. Some flood watches are up for Northern California. We got some, what is that, wind advisories? Yeah, wind advisories up here in areas of Washington and Idaho. But outside of that, the eastern U.S. is pretty quiet. Nothing going on in Florida. I know my head kind of covers up South Florida sometimes, but the excessive rainfall outlook, there's a marginal risk across the Four Corners state and just a couple little areas in Georgia and Florida, but no excessive rainfall really expected today. Flooding risk, not an issue for today. Hopefully I don't eat my words with that, but as of right now, I don't see anywhere that could, get a significant amount of rain, except maybe Florida. Florida's always tricky, and I'll actually zoom into Florida once we get to the southeast timestamp here and talk about what I mean. But here's what I mean as far as widespread severe weather chances across the Rockies and areas of the high plains. If you live in that dark green, that's where you have a level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather. And even down here in Arizona, a very small portion of southwest New Mexico, a marginal risk, level 1 out of 5. Tornado threat below 2%, so there's nothing that shows up. Wind threat and then hail threat, both have a 5% of both. 5% risk of winds means there's a 5% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. 5% risk of hail means there's a 5% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger within 25 miles in any given location. So we really just need to watch out for severe weather across the Rockies, northern high plains, and those areas. The southeast today, most of the moisture is going to hang out off the coast of the southeast, the Gulf of Mexico, but as we know, Florida sticks out like a sore thumb, quite literally, and you guys stick out right into that tropical air mass, the Bahamas too, so you're going to get some showers and storms, a typical summer-type pattern down here. So, once again, another day that this afternoon to this evening, you're going to get widespread showers and storms anywhere. It's possible anywhere across the peninsula of Florida. These will dance around, dump a lot of heavy rainfall. And then, of course, when you lose the daytime heating, things will calm down. Now, if you're vacationing along like maybe the Georgia to South Carolina coastline, don't be surprised if you get some rain, some storms later this evening into the overnight hours, as we're starting to, I think really more so today, and especially into this weekend, we start to lose that comfortable air mass, and, summer comes on back next week across the southeast. I hope nobody actually thought that this fall-like air mass was going to stick around for the south. I think I would say that I think you know better than that. Some folks call it false fall, and some call it an Indian summer. I've always thought Indian summer, because I've heard of that term before. I had somebody on my Facebook say, you young folks don't know the right term for it, and he was just joking around, but I always thought Indian summer was when it stays really hot later into fall. Like when it's still like 85, 90 degrees in late October. I've always thought that's what an Indian summer is, not when you get a cool down. I guess it can mean the same thing, but it's hard for me to consider that an Indian summer because, you get a cool down in August, sure, and then it warms back up in late August and then September. But in the South, September is still summer. Let's be real. We want it to be fall, right, for us fall weather fans, but I consider the Indian summer thing more so when you get a few weeks of cool temperatures, like in late September, early October, and then all of a sudden you get some significant warm up for a couple weeks in like late October, even heck November sometimes. That's my version of an Indian summer. So maybe same thing, but like the timeline is a little mixed up. But anyways, back to the video here. We start to get into the tomorrow morning, and some moisture starts to creep a little bit closer as the air mass starts to moisten up a little bit more, a little bit further north into the Carolinas. But we do need to watch this moisture into the Gulf of Mexico down here. And some of this rain could add up in the peninsula of Florida. Some areas could get 2 inches of rain. It's very possible, especially if you continuously get hit by storm after storm. It could add up. So don't be surprised you get some possible flash flooding down here in Florida, depending on how many times you get hit by downpours and stuff like that. So the Northeast, you guys don't get a lot of time on this video because there's just nothing going on. We get rid of that upper low. It heads on off to the east. It's gone. We get into this evening, nice evening, overnight hours, all the way into tomorrow morning. There's nothing going on up here. Enjoy your Friday. Fantastic weather to take your wife out to dinner. To go out for a movie, go out for a night walk, just a nice 24 hours expected out ahead of us. So enjoy your day and evening out here in the Northeast. The South Central U.S., kind of a rinse and repeat type pattern. I mean, you continue just to have the flow that's a little bit too far north. So that means that the only chances of rain that you get in Texas, and I'm starting to hear more people in the comments saying it's starting to get pretty dry in Texas, is just pulse thunderstorms. So, this particular run, the HER model shows some pulse storms right here, southeast Texas, a little bit of action in southern Louisiana. Just the main flow in the upper levels of the atmosphere, the main lifting mechanism for shower and storm activity is just positioned too far north. You're kind of influenced by this ridge, while your friends over here, us here in the southeast and mid-Atlantic, are enjoying nice temperatures. You guys are baking alive, and I do apologize on behalf of, I guess, the weather. But you guys do get some nice winter storms out here. So, I don't feel too bad for you guys. I do want you guys to get rain that need it because it's very important to get rain. So I am pulling for rain out here, and I'm certainly pulling for it to cool down. I'm not that greedy when it comes to. I want only the cool weather to happen here. You guys know what I mean. But as far as weather happening, not a whole lot going on. Most of the flow is positioned over the Rockies, so New Mexico is going to continue to, especially western New Mexico into Colorado, continue to get these shower and storm activity kind of rounds here. Once you get into the eastern portion of these states, not as much, but we could wake up once again tomorrow morning to an area of energy kind of moving out of Kansas into western Missouri in the form of some showers and storms. So we'll watch out for that. Folks, the temperatures are going to be downright brutal. We could break some record highs, especially in southwestern Oklahoma, maybe even the panhandle of Texas, kind of once again around kind of the I'm trying to think of that one name that always comes up to my head in this area. But I know, Abilene, you guys could get hot once again. Somebody correct me in the comments, says y'all hit 113 degrees the other day. It's going to hit 100 in Dallas probably, but this is going to be the epicenter. Just awful heat. Now, as far as the heat index in this area, it does look like it's more so a dry heat in this area, but the further east you get, the more so it's not. So, what's wild here is you actually don't have a heat index in this area. But, only 100 degrees in Dallas, and you have a heat index of 113. So if you actually look at dew points and how this makes sense here, look, dew points in the 40s and 50s in this pocket of really, really hot air. But it's still hot, once you get into Oklahoma, but dew points are in the 70s. So very hot, soupy, humid air, heat, more of a dry, desert-like heat right along this somewhat of a dry line that's positioned right into here. So pretty wild stuff. There's more to the atmosphere except, besides just the temperature, if you understand what I'm saying there. But the north central U.S., just some showers on, scattered about from Nebraska through the Midwest, through southern sections of Minnesota, maybe Wisconsin into the UP and Michigan. We'll continue to just get some spotty showers up in the UP. Some showers are possible down in southwest Iowa. And then we'll have to watch some bigger storms that are possible in western Nebraska, northeast Colorado. And then we get into, the overnight hours into tomorrow morning. It doesn't look too active at all. Looks pretty quiet up here. Now the Rockies, most of the activities out here. We'll take it all the way to the prime heating of the day, prime storm activity of the day. And here it is. This is around anywhere from 2 to 4 p.m. A lot of storm activity, especially from Salt Lake City, I would say points east, even some storms south into central to eastern to southern Utah, some storms into western Colorado, storms down here in eastern Arizona, more so western New Mexico, some storms if you live in western Wyoming, eastern Idaho, the entire central and western sections of Montana. These storms will flow in from the southwest to the northeast, and some of them will be severe. So if you're heading on through the Rockies, vacationing, checking out all the sites out here, from Utah to Wyoming to Colorado down to Arizona, the Four Corner states. And don't be surprised if you hit, some rocky weather out here. So, rocky weather, Rocky Mountains, makes sense, right? Anyways, we continue. And I will say, as we're waking up tomorrow, check out the Sierra Nevada. Some snow's trying to show up in the Sierra Nevada. Even a little bit of snow trying to show up in some of these higher elevations in Northern California and even Nevada. So you can tell, we're getting closer to fall out here for sure, especially the higher elevations. So waking up to a plume of rain in areas that could really use it. So that's good news, but a little bit closer to our friends up here in the Pacific Northwest. Rain will become much more widespread, even heavy, maybe some rumbles of thunder. And then up in the way up in the Cascades, you could get a little bit of snow. I mean, you got to get way up there. I don't even know what the snow levels would be. Probably like, I imagine, way up there. I'm not even going to try to guess. But, you know, we get into this afternoon, a lot of shower activity across Eugene, the Valley of Oregon, all the way up to, you know, Medford, down to Medford. Yeah, I mean, a lot of rain scattered about. Could get some rumbles of thunder even around Seattle. It's very possible. Look at that heavy rain this evening across Seattle. Definitely a rainy Friday night, and it's just going to be spinning right over you guys all the way into tomorrow morning. It's pretty interesting to see the blue on the map, though. But rainfall between now and the next 24 hours, Seattle could get over an inch of rain. It's just scattered about totals, but all in all, if you live in the western half of Oregon and Washington, you're certainly going to get at least measurable rain. And, you know, you can see some snow starting to show up here. We'll actually look at the National Weather Service forecast here. You can see some, you got to pull in your bifocals here. Some splotches of snow showing up in those higher elevations. I mean, you got to get way up there, guys. So, temperatures today, a very nice day across the Northeast with no precipitation expected. So just nice weather, 60s, 70s, Southeast, 70s and 80s again, more so 80s now. You start to get a little bit closer to the west and the deep south. You start to get back in the 90s. It's heating back up in Nashville, down to Birmingham, and especially points west of those areas. Of course, we've talked about Texas and Oklahoma. Brutally hot, 70s, more so 80s now across the Great Lakes and Midwest region. The high plains, 80s and 90s. A little bit cooler the further west you get now because there is some lower pressure overhead, bringing in some weather, cloud cover, rain. It's cooling on down across the immediate western U.S., so it's warmer in the Rockies than it is in the western U.S. now. So there is some severe weather, higher severe weather chances to come. This is for Sunday, this coming Sunday, the 25th. There's a slight risk up for areas of the Dakotas and northern Minnesota. So if you live up here and you're tuning in from this area, definitely be aware of this. Level 2 out of 5 risk. And right now we just know there's a 15% risk of severe weather within 25 miles of any given location. And then we move into Monday, and it shifts a little bit further east to southeast in this yellow area, including Minneapolis, Duluth, over into basically most of northern and northwestern Wisconsin. And even still a smidget of eastern North Dakota, there's a 15% risk of severe weather within 25 miles in a given location. So this is new. They're pretty confident on this, and this is really being brought to you by this western trough that's already moving in now. That's what's bringing in all the weather across the Pacific Northwest. As we move into Saturday, this will somewhat weaken and detach itself. And as we are getting into Sunday afternoon, we got this area of lower pressure embedded in higher pressure now. So kind of a full-fledged upper cutoff low now. And this will help aid to bring a flow right up into this area. And we will likely get severe weather right into this region. There's a lot of warm, moist air building up into this region. I mean, it's still late August. So, I mean, it's easy to get that even pretty far north. But this will certainly bring the lifting mechanism. This will bring the flow aloft right into this area. And then we go on and move into Monday. There's a chance of severe weather too. And, I mean, this thing is really weakening now. But there's still an area of lower pressure right here, kind of a cutoff area of energy that will bring severe weather a little bit further to the east. So, you know, it's not very impressive when you look at the 500 millibar, you know, low pressure, high pressure out here. But that's the main player that's going to drive the severe weather threat. Now, an update on the tropics. Once again, we'll start off by always looking at the experts. Tropical cyclone activity is not expected during the next 7 days. It's August the 23rd. Just unreal stuff. I continue to be just flat out flabbergasted by this, that there's just not even one area of interest out here. I will watch for them to maybe drop a yellow area right here in the Gulf of Mexico that they might introduce like a 20% chance of developing, but I don't know if they're going to do that. I really don't. So nothing, no area of interest, no depression, storm, hurricane out there. And if we look at the Atlantic Basin, folks, you're going to look at this and say, well, I see stuff, but it's not a whole lot. First off, I want to note that in my head is probably in the way. Let me see if I can do something here. Let's see if I can put this up here for a minute. I know this is a little different. I don't think I've ever done this, so this is new. First off, I want you guys to note here, there is nothing coming off of Africa right at this moment. So I want you guys to notice that right off the dot. And then I want you to just kind of look out here in what we call the MDR, the main development region, the tropical Atlantic, monsoon trough, whatever you want to call it, but fancy terminology, the Atlantic Ocean. An area of the ocean that typically starts to get active this time of the year. For the most part, I'm not going to use the word void because it's not completely void of storms and showers and convection, but it's pretty quiet out here. There's definitely nothing consolidating. There's no energy coming together as one main dominant piece of energy, a vortmax or piece of vortice or anything like that. There's just nothing. So current observations, there's nothing. I'm going to go on and move this back down here because it's already kind of throwing me off here because I'm not used to it. I will, there's a trough digging down right here with cold. Well, there's a cold front right in here. You see this energy right into this region right here. Some areas indicating like the colder cloud tops of the reds and the yellows. I want to watch to see if this energy right here can try to get its act together and then maybe scoot this way as a ridge kind of builds back over it and then makes the flow more so east to west, which would push whatever can get going here into Texas, maybe Louisiana. I do want to watch that. And I've been mentioning it occasionally over the last 5 to 6 days, and it's still something worth watching. So those are the pieces on the table right now. If we take a closer look at that wave I'm watching, and this is energy in the upper levels of the atmosphere, and the more you see sort of the yellows and the oranges and even reds and dark oranges in some cases, even reds, the more energy there is in this case, the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere, 500 millibars, 20,000 feet up in the air. So this is 500 millibars. We get into this afternoon and you see, if I get this in motion, you see that spin in the Gulf of Mexico? It's not really even much of a spin, to be honest with you. It's kind of just an open wave. You see how it goes tomorrow afternoon, then we get into Sunday morning, then we get into Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, and then it just kind of plows into the Texas coastline. That's that little weak energy that I've been watching. It's just something to kind of pay attention to. I mean, you want to even watch this little area right here off the coast of Florida. But you want to watch to see if these little features can do little just sneaky things in the very short term, because, I mean, this is a little over 48 hours from now. So it's not very far out. It kind of tries to do something and then it kind of shifts into Florida. And, the latest GFS kind of shows something similar, gets the energy in the Gulf of Mexico, spins it around a little bit, and then moves it right into Texas sometime late this weekend into early next week. As far as if you showed precipitation from this, guys, I don't even have it pulled up because it's not very impressive. It just looks like a blob of green. There's no low pressure that actually pops up on the output map for us. There's really nothing. There's really nothing that symbolizes that there's anything there. You really have to pull up kind of the nerdy stuff, which is what this is, the 500 millibar Vortmac chart. And yeah, that's the only way you can see it. Now you do pull up the precipitation map here and we look at the latest Euro from overnight. Does it show anything out there? Well, taking in this weekend, nothing. Okay. And there's that little blob of green with a little piece of energy. It tries to get going in the Gulf of Mexico. Like I said, there's hardly nothing showing up there. We get into early next week. Guys, we're getting into late August. I would say we're pretty much in peak hurricane season. I always want to say center. We're in peak hurricane season at this point. There's a little L that pops up out there. This could be a wave to watch in the central Atlantic. Does it ever really get going? It does not. We get now 7 days out. We are literally 8 days out at this point, actually. Next Saturday morning, August the 31st. First day of college football. And we take it all the way to 10 days out, guys, and there's nothing. There's nothing out there. So, you look at the thumbnail and it says, when will hurricane season uptick? Well, I don't see it the answer is I don't see it upticking anytime in the next 7 days. If we fast forward between now and next Friday morning, and you ask me, Mitch, are we going to be tracking anything? I would say no, based off what we're seeing. And that's what I would say. Now you look at the latest GFS, and I say this about every morning, the GFS is running a little bit later now, and I think as we get here in the next couple months, it'll start running a lot earlier, I think, unless they've changed something up. But same thing, guys. We're going to start it off by this morning. Nothing going on. There's a pretty aggressive wave that shoots off Africa here. It looks like, okay, well, that might get going here. And it never does. And all of a sudden, we're into Wednesday afternoon. Still nothing. We're into next Friday morning. Still nothing. All right, we're into 10 days from now. Still nothing. We're getting past 10 days now, which really is no point in looking at. And, I mean, we go out as far as the GFS will let us go out at this point. And this is all the way till midday September 3rd. Folks, there's nothing out there. Nothing. And, yeah, I will back it up and kind of look at the OOZ and see what it does once we get past 300 hours out. And, yeah, I mean, at the last couple frames, it pops a couple storms off. Pops a tropical storm hitting Louisiana like September 7th, but folks, it's 384 hours out. I mean, who knows what's going to happen that far out? We have a hard enough time figuring out what's going to happen in the next few days. And I'll go back to this again. I'm not going to get deep into it. That's why it trips me out why people, want to watch these seasonal forecasts. I mean, we struggle enough figuring out what's going to happen in the next 7 days. And obviously, this hurricane season is kicking our rear ends trying to figure it out. I mean, let's just admit it. We thought, okay, La Nina, very active hurricane season, sea surface temperatures, very, very warm. Shear is always very low in a La Nina. But I think some people are, and including me, I think some people are just kind of forgetting that we're not fully in a La Nina yet. We're struggling to actually make the full transition, and it might take all the way until like next spring before we really get into one. That could bode well for winter weather fans, and despite maybe what you're hearing, a La Nina does not bode well for the eastern U.S. for winter weather chances. But if we can stay more so in a neutral kind of, what I mean by neutral, more so between an El Nino and a La Nina, that could be better for winter weather chances and colder risk and things like that. This is a confusing one, folks. It kind of reminds me of 2022. Big time hurricane season expected. It ended up being around average, but we were pretty void of anything in the month of August. And then we had some activity that got going in September. And of course, we rounded September off in 2022 with what they've now upgraded to Category 5 Ian. And we know what happened with Ian in Southwest Florida. So please don't let your guard down. I think you guys know better than that. But I would admit that, man, there's a lot of people perplexed right now. I mean, even some of the smartest people out there, they're smarter than me, are just like, dude, this one has us stumped. Not so much with what's going on right now, because, like right now, we can tell what's going on, right? Real-time observations. We can say, okay, well, this is the reason why we're not getting any tropical activity, plumes of dry air, blah, blah, blah. But what's tripping everybody out, I think, is how there's nothing showing up in the 7 to 10 day range on model guidance either, when really everything's pointing to a pretty favorable background for the Atlantic as we get into the first few days of September. But there's nothing there. And I also want you guys to remember too that we can talk about background MJO phases until we're blue in the face. Rising air, drying air, which I've discussed on this channel. But we can still get a hurricane, a big-time hurricane, when it's not a very favorable phase. I think Beryl's a fantastic example of that. Yeah, we had a little, what we call a Kelvin wave, but, I mean, there was a lot of dry air on top of Beryl, but Beryl was able to become an anomaly and cocoon itself with a lot of moist air, and ultimately snuck into the Caribbean, turned into a Category 5 hurricane in the middle of summer. So just goes to show you, we got a lot to learn. So I challenge you guys that, to do really want to figure out what's going to happen a season out. Like I even got people in the winter that will say, Mitch, what's the weather looking like for this spring? Heck, I don't know. And I would argue nobody does except God. So just keep things, and I'm talking to myself too, guys. Keep things 5 to 10 days out. And we don't know what the heck's going to happen after that. So, I've had time to just kind of get personal with you guys, kind of jab my jaw a little bit. So that's why I've been doing this lately. Not even sure if people even are making it this far into the video, or probably just like, dude, you are talking way too much. I got to get to work. But yeah, and the last thing I'll show you is the European ensemble, folks, and it's void too. I mean, yeah, this makes up 51 members, and you just got a few L's out here. And folks, the last thing I'll end this, and I'll quit talking. The way I'm talking, I don't want you guys to think I'm disappointed that there's no hurricanes out here. It's like, oh man, this sucks. That's not what I want you guys to get out of my tone and my voice. And if it's coming out like that, I really do apologize, but that's not it. Do I want to track something in the tropics? I'm not going to lie to you. I would love to track something. Do I want a major hurricane to hit a landmass? I don't. But, when you want one, you run the risk of the other, right? So, when you're passionate about the weather, certainly something that you enjoy might negatively impact somebody else. It's like me loving snow. I love snow. Heck, I love getting an ice storm. I know people are like, dude, Mitch, you got to be crazy. An ice storm? I love getting anything winter weather. But me pulling for snow might irritate somebody else because snow just makes them angry, because it might make them fall when they walk out the house. They got to shovel it. So, you get what I'm saying, guys. So I'm done. You guys have a wonderful Friday. No video tonight. It's not worth making one. There's nothing going on. You guys enjoy the start of your weekend. God bless all y'all. God is good. Have a wonderful day.